On today's show, we talk about the breakout season so far for Connor McMichael and what to expect from Alex Ovechkin next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Duhaime. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the breakout season for Connor McMichael. And who thought going into this season, having Connor McMichael playing on that second wing with PLD and Tom Wilson would be so great? It is just that. How is he getting that done? We'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll talk about the Great Eight and what to expect from him this season. He is getting off to a slow start yet again, at least in the goal scoring department. They're chipping in here and there, but definitely a far cry from what he used to be in his younger day. What should we expect from Alex Ovechkin? We'll talk about that. And then in the final segment, we'll talk about a moment in the last game between Duhaime and Michkov and how it was about to get real chippy and how Matvei Michkov, I think, was about to learn a lesson. But just to get it going here, talking about the breakout season for Connor McMichael. And if you are an everydayer of the show, you know I spoke about a couple summers ago that it needed to be the season for Connor McMichael. I thought he was ready. We saw him stewing down in the American League, winning Calder Cup championships with the Hershey Bears. Like I talked about, a lot of those players went in as boys and left as men. I'm talking about the Calder Cup as they were put through their paces, playing the Coachella Valley team. So as you see his growth, it should come as no surprise that he's at where he's at, as I think that he has shown incremental growth each and every season. And I think that he's to the point right now that he doesn't have that fear in the back of his mind that, am I going to get sent back down to Hershey? That I think that he's feeling comfortable in his environment, comfortable playing on that second line left wing. He knows where he's at. And it's not just that. He has 2 players that play on the line with him that have a real great hockey IQ. Of course, I'm talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I'm talking about Tom Wilson and how great that line has been for the Capitals. And, you know, that's the biggest thing, is if you can find a cohesive unit to play with, I think that sometimes that is half the battle. But let's talk about his season thus far. The Capitals have launched into the 24-25 season with remarkable momentum, effectively integrating both recent acquisitions and established veterans to secure a series of challenging victories. A standout performer thus far is Connor McMichael. And one of the things that I like that former GM BMAC didn't do, and that was to trade Connor McMichael to the Jets, as that was the rumbling out there, is that the Jets were all in on making a move. They wanted to offload Rutger McGroarty. As we know, he went to the Pittsburgh Penguins and subsequently now plays in the American League. All things considered, I'm happy that the Capitals stood pat with Connor McMichael. I think that he is just going to get better. I think what we've seen thus far is just a glimpse of his true greatness. But it's not just that. Overcoming change, as his native position is the center position, to play wing and not have an attitude about it, I think speaks volumes of him as well. This season, McMichael has been shifted away from his natural center position to assume a crucial role on the second line left wing, paired with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Tom Wilson. Head coach Spencer Carberry's strategic decision aims to enhance top six chemistry, showcasing McMichael's adaptability and skill set in a new offensive arrangement. And so far, mission accomplished. I think that that second line most nights is the most cohesive line. I think it is the line that works together the best. I think that, we've seen glimpses of greatness on the fourth line. I think that the first line has chipped in. The third line, I think, is still a little bit of a work in progress, but definitely that second line with Connor McMichael has been killing it. Talking about his adaptability and performance, transitioning from a natural center position can be challenging, yet McMichael has adapted remarkably well, maintaining his impact despite shifting away from the pivot role. In fact, his performance appears to have improved, Carberry noted. His reads are noticeable, more fluid, particularly in his synergy with Willie and their communication. He further emphasized McMichael is among our smartest players, which is why he can effectively operate as both a center and a winger. His versatility allows him to excel in any role. And that was one of the things I talked about going into the season, that it could be mix and match. I think that Henrik Slappier and Connor McMichael, if called upon, could mix it up a little bit. I don't think they ultimately want to do it. Let's not try to fix something if it's not broken. Talking about his stats and contributions as of this season, McMichael has played 6 games, recording 3 goals and 5 assists, totaling 8 points. And maintaining an impressive point per game average, he has consistently contributed to the score sheet in all but one game, and his average ice time has reached 16:01 minutes, marking the highest of his career to date. And it was one of the things that I spoke about in one of my first interviews ever of hosting Locked On, was with former NBC Sports Washington writer JJ Regan. I remember talking to him. I said, JJ, what were your thoughts on Connor McMichael? And he said, this is when Connor McMichael was first in the league. He said he played well, but it wasn't sustainable. And that was his assessment of Henrik Slop here as well, that ultimately it took a while for those players to grow into the players that you see before you right now. I think back to Connor McMichael and Henrik Slop here, 2 guys that needed to bulk up because they were getting pushed off the puck rather easily. So they are definitely not these young guys that we once remember, still young guys, but they definitely have some more miles on their hockey odometer. And in the case of Connor McMichael, it really shows. Physical improvements at just 23-year-olds. McMichael exhibits notable improvements in both strength and speed. His skating has advanced compared to last year, showcasing increased speed and confidence. He effectively engages in puck battles and utilizes his stick handling skills and hockey intelligence to navigate the game defensively. When he doesn't have the puck, he positions himself strategically to threaten the offense or provide solid coverage in his own zone. This guy is dialed in, and it helps to play on a line with 2 huge dudes. I'm talking about PLD and Tom Wilson, that he's definitely the smallest guy on that line, but I think that he is a good source of the brains of the operation. I think that PLD has a great hockey mind, as does Tom Wilson, but I think all things considered, that line is on the same page. Talking about insights on him, Mikey has shown significant improvement, Nick Dowd stated. What sets him apart is his subtle speed. He possesses excellent skating ability, and he is a highly intelligent player. He's made substantial strides in his development. Notably, his defense game has evolved considerably, making him a dependable asset in that area. And it's one of the things that these players are a work in progress. I think that, I'm talking about how great Connor McMichael is playing. I think he is just that, a work in progress. But like Nick Dowd stated there, what sets him aside is his speed, subtle speed, and skating ability, and his high hockey IQ. Those are all things that are what you're looking for in a hockey player and when you're drafted. So I think at the end of the day, even though there was probably a lot of pressure from a lot of different people around the trade deadline to make a move, or I guess it was at the draft in Connor McMichael's case, that I'm glad that B-Mac had the ability to see down the football field a little bit and understand how an important role Connor McMichael would have with this team. Talking next about his skills, McMichael has elevated his game significantly in terms of playmaking and puck distribution. His effectiveness initiates offensive plays from the neutral zone, demonstrating advanced puck carrying skills and translates into high-quality scoring opportunities in the O-zone. While the presence of Dubois and Wilson certainly enhances his performance, it's McMichael's individual progression that stands out. And I think it's confidence, too. You know, as a young guy in the league, I think part of it is if you don't get off to a truly great start, that maybe you lack your capabilities a little bit. And I think that he's seeing his progression, getting 2 goals in a game, saying, hey, I'm not just this AHL call-up guy anymore. I belong here. I am an NHL player. It has to be a feeling of accomplishment you got to think for a guy like Connor. Talking next about his high hockey IQ, he's a cerebral player with a complete skill set, says PLD. His hockey IQ allows him to make plays under pressure, and he's adept at distributing the puck from various angles. His ability to both pass and shoot effectively make him a multifaceted offensive threat. And why I don't see him getting yanked out of the lineup anytime soon, and why I don't think we can expect to see that second line tinkered with a whole lot either. Talking next about his defensive awareness. On the defensive side of the game, this player demonstrates exceptional awareness, consistently positioning himself to provide effective coverage while skillfully managing the puck to avoid turnovers. According to Carberry, he rarely makes systematic errors during his shifts, highlighting his solid performance. And quite the accolades for a guy in his 20s, his early 20s. That is something that you a lot of times see in a more veteran type player. Talking about special teams role, in addition to his 5-on-5 play, he has also taken on the responsibility in special teams, excelling as a PK. His defensive skills contribute to generating several shorthanded scoring opportunities. These are all things that the Capitals are looking for as this team is going into the younger direction. And the Capitals have already made great strides just this season with the movement that was made last summer, that this team is already trending in a younger direction. And these are going to be the faces. I'm talking Connor McMichael, I'm talking Tom Wilson, these kind of players, that they are going to be the key players on the Capitals in the post Ovechkin era. So it's reassuring as a Capitals fan to know that the Capitals have that sort of depth. Talking about his overall development, his heightened awareness on both ends of the ice, coupled with noticeable improvements in strength and skating, in his transition from a promising prospect to an impactful player from the Capitals anticipated drafting in the first round of the 2019 NHL draft. How hockey goes by quickly in your time in the NHL. I was talking about earlier in another episode about Alex Ovechkin and how many years he has in the league, and Tom Wilson, that these years definitely go by very quick. And you got to think for Connor McMichael, he feels that same way too. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about what to expect from Alex Ovechkin. He's getting off to another slow start, at least in the goal scoring department. What can we ultimately expect? I'll discuss straight ahead. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money with Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineups live. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 bet. That's use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 bet. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So this team is rolling. You see all the different players that are making big contributions. I'm talking Tom Wilson and Strome and Connor McMichael. And one player is a bit slow to the party, or late to the party, if you will, and that is Alex Ovechkin. Getting assists, definitely helping the Capitals out and chipping away, albeit slowly, at that goal-scoring title for Wayne Gretzky. And ultimately, what is my projection for the Grade 8 this season? I stand pat with 35 goals. Despite his slow start, one of the things that Tom Wilson and John Carlson said is to never doubt the big man. Last season, slow start, all-star break, went to Dubai, rode around on a camel, came back a changed man. That is something that maybe we could expect from him this year. As Alex Ovechkin gets older, it seems like it takes him a little bit longer to get warmed up. He's 39 years old now. He's not in his early 20s skating around there. It seems like he's just finding, it's taken a little bit of some time here for him to find his stride. But ultimately, what can we expect from Alex Ovechkin this season? The Capitals secured a significant victory against a divisional rival, accompanied by a historic goal from Alex Ovechkin. This remarkable achievement made for an exceptional Wednesday night in DC as he continues to keep knocking down milestones. Ovechkin scored an empty net goal with 1 minute and 10 seconds left in the third period, extending the Capitals' lead to 6-3 over the Flyers. This milestone marked Ovechkin's 855th career goal, bringing him within 39 goals of Wayne Gretzky's all-time NHL record. It is definitely within view that he can do it. Do I think he's going to do it this season? I don't. I would love to be wrong. I would love for him to do that, but I think he's going to have to go on one heck of a tear to accomplish that goal. But I think it's doable under his current contract. As we know, Ovi will be this year and the next season. And after that, well, that is a bit ambiguous. Talking about the goal breakdown, Ovechkin scored a goal after Dylan Strome skillfully passed the puck down the left wing into the Flyer zone. The captain of the Caps raced to the puck and scored with a backhand shot. This marked Ovechkin's 58th career empty net goal, making him the record holder. And it's interesting that we concentrate on him catching and passing Gretzky, but all the milestones that he's breaking between here and there. So at the end of the day, he is going to have quite the trophy case of all his accomplishments. His career against the Flyers, additionally, this goal was his 50th career goal against the Flyers, placing him third and most goals scored against a single franchise, behind 55 goals in 73 games versus Winnipeg and 50 goals in 81 games versus Tampa Bay. And it's one of the things that I never quite understood, is that why do certain players have so much luck against certain teams? As the years change, it's different coaches, different players. Why do certain players have those teams' number? It's a bit interesting and maybe a deep dive for some analytics. Talking about season performance, Ovechkin's recent goal was his second in 6 games of the 24-25 season. If he maintains this current pace, he should find 35 goals. That's the kind of thing here. And there's different analytics that I could read into here, but that is still ultimately my hunch. Is that he is going to score that 35 goals. Some people are picking more. I'm not going to even go into their analytics. What I'm going to talk about right here, right now, is that I see him getting 35 goals. I have a couple windows open up here, many projections. Some people projecting that he will catch Gretzky. Some people say far less. I don't need to hear any of that. I'm standing pat with 35 goals. All things considered, still wouldn't be a squandered season for Alex Ovechkin, but definitely, a dip in production. It's a far cry from how many goals that he scored years ago. But hey, Father Time is undefeated, as they say. And as he continues to chip away, I think he'll be able to do it. It will just require one more season to get her done. All right, so coming up here after the break, there was a tense moment in the last game between the Caps and the Flyers as Duhaime and Michkov were ready to throw down. Would that have really been a good idea for Michkov? I'll discuss coming up. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And there is a lot of football on any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday. And some of those games you're interested in too, say it's a Commanders or a Ravens game, but maybe it's a weekend and your team isn't playing. Open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, all of those games got that much more exciting. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. So there was a tense moment. Well, there were quite a few tense moments in the last game, the Capitals versus the Flyers, as Matvei Michkov, a young guy for the Flyers, trying to make a name for himself, trying to show to everyone that I am this great Russian player that's going to be the next great face of the NHL. And I think that to a certain extent, he was a little bit full of himself as he tried to take on Duhaime, which I think would have been a whole lot more than he could handle. But at the end of the day, sometimes in life, you need something called an object lesson. And I think that, to a certain extent, if Michkov will step up to someone like a Duhaime and say Duhaime just lays him out, it's not going to be a good look for Duhaime necessarily, but also on Michkov, what were you thinking? To a certain extent, you play with a bull, you get the horn. That is what the case is with Michkov. If you would have, in fact, stepped up to Duhaime, you get what you get. If you think back, it's going to be quite a few seasons already. Svechnikov, playing for the Carolina Hurricanes, wanted to take on Alex Ovechkin. Can you believe that? Alex Ovechkin, if you've seen the guy in person, a huge dude, it was a couple punches and it was a knockout. He was out cold on the ice. And some people said, Alex Ovechkin, what were you doing? And Ovi said something to the effect, he wanted to fight me. He stepped up to me. He got what he got. And I think that's the case. And, some of these young guys in the league that want to make a name for themselves, at the end of the day, if you want to step up to someone, you should be prepared for all that comes along with it. During the second period of the Wednesday's matchup, the Capitals forward Brandon Duhaime issued a pointed warning to Philadelphia Flyers rookie Matvei Michkov, who was attempting to incite a physical altercation. And I think that there is frustration around the Flyers organization in general, as they are in last place and they are having a rough go of it. And I think that, he saw some of the big guys on the Flyers that wanted to get in fights earlier. We remember the fight that took place with Dylan McElrath and Delorier and how that went. And I think to a certain extent that, Matvei Michkov is like, yeah, I can be that tough guy too. Don't ever say that. And one of the things that Mike Tyson said is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's a sobering thing to think about for these young guys that want to make a name for themselves. As the teams lined up for a face-off, Duhaime and Michkov positioned themselves adjacent to each other. Michkov initiated a series of pushes attempting to provoke Duhaime and escalate tensions on the ice. All things considered, I want to applaud Duhaime for showing restraint. I wouldn't have blamed him if he did decide to drop the mitts, if he kept chirping him or asking for a fight. At some point, you got to indulge him and give him what he wants. But I think that was just him being showing good judgment. And I think at the end of the day, Michkov decided maybe I'd be biting off more than I could chew. Talking about physical engagement, Duhaime engaged physically and initiated a dialogue with Michkov as the officials intervened to defuse the situation. Notably, the Capitals' fourth-line player appeared to caution Michkov with a warning saying, "You don't want that," as captured during the broadcast. And I think that warning in and of itself was enough for Michkov to say, hey, maybe I don't want some of that. So it's interesting that these young players think they are much bigger than they are. Following this exchange, Duhaime stepped in to take the face-off in place of Nick Dowd, who had been excused from the circle after the puck was dropped. Duhaime and Michkov exchanged some checks, but did not escalate any further. In 217 NHL career games, Duhaime has accumulated a total of 243 penalty minutes and 17 NHL fights, contributing to over 38 fights throughout his pro career. Meanwhile, Michkov is in the early stages of his rookie season, having played 7 games and collected 6 penalty minutes, 243 versus 6. And I understand that Duhaime has been in the league longer, but he's a seasoned fighter. Just let's leave it at that. But he was not engaged in any fight. So, I think it is a rite of passage that at some point Michkov will engage in some sort of fight, but just pick the right opponent. You didn't see Nick Backstrom trying to pick fights a whole lot. You don't see Jacob Vrana trying to pick fights a whole lot. Why? Because at the end of the day, they know who they are. That is not in their skill set. Is to be the tough guy. Save that for the big guys out there. Unless it's an equally matched, you don't want to get injured. Definitely not getting in a fight. That is definitely going to be a blow to your pride. Talking about the final outcome, though, the Capitals secured a decisive 6-3 victory over the Flyers, making it their 5th consecutive win. Now, when I say decisive, I know that the Flyers made it much closer than they should have, but at the end of the day, the Capitals walk away victorious as they prepare to take on the Lightning this weekend. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals, and I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.